Constructivist theory in education is based upon the concept that learning occurs through a construction of knowledge, built upon and expanded by experiences and reflection. This theory puts forward the idea that we are active participants and creators of our own education. Nature requires not only nurture, but the social frameworks which make nurture possible. Western education had, for centuries, been based upon the passive transmission of knowledge from teacher to student. Since the developments in constructivism by pioneers such as Lev Vygotsky and Jean Piaget, the focus and emphasis of educational models has shifted significantly towards encouraging and designing classes around the active participation of students. For example, a teacher who is implementing constructivist theories in class will aim to elicit ideas and answers and encourage reflection. The teacher will be aware of the student's initial understanding of a given topic and will, stage by stage, discovery by discovery, act as a guide and a facilitator for the student's construction and understanding of a topic or area of education. One of the key figures in the constructivist theory of education was the Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget. Piaget moved to France in 1919 and began to teach at a street school for boys, working closely with the school head Jean Binet, creator of the Binet intelligence test. Piaget soon noticed that students of a particular age would consistently fail to answer correctly certain questions on the test. These observations led eventually to Piaget's theory of cognitive development. This proposes 4 development stages in cognition. Number 1, the sensory motor stage, beginning at birth until the age of 2. In this stage, children are egocentric, and their experiences of the world are entirely shaped by the senses. Number 2, the pre-operational stage, from ages 2 until 7. Children begin to speak and understand and interpret symbols. Children at this age, although still largely egocentric, become extremely curious about the world around them and become aware of their own capacity for knowledge and intuition. Number 3. In the concrete operational stage, from the ages of 7 to 11, children will have developed the skills of conservation and the capacity for logical thought. Children in this stage are no longer egocentric and can understand differing points of view and standpoints. Number 4. The final stage is that of formal operations, from the age of 11 to 16 and up. As children move toward adolescence and adulthood, they first develop abstract thought and abstract reasoning. Children have the ability to conserve and to think logically. Piaget set out to prove his theories by executing the same experiments to children at different developmental stages. The results are staggeringly consistent and suggest that Piaget's idea of knowledge being built upon in a constructive process may indeed be the foundation of all learning. Criticisms of Piaget have focused on his theories of individuality or self-centeredness and his insistence on early egocentrism, playing down cultural or societal factors which may influence the ordered development of sequential stages. Lev Vygotsky, the Russian psychologist, challenged Piaget on this basis and created an alternative theory which proposed that cognitive development depends crucially upon interactive or community support. Lev Vygotsky, born in Russia in 1896, was a pioneer in educational and cultural psychology. For Vygotsky, social interaction and the role of the community were essential for cognitive development. Whereas Piaget looked at universal stages of the individual, Vygotsky examines the influence of society and culture on the development of the child. It was Vygotsky's belief that the efficacy and speed of development was dependent on a range of factors such as cultural and environmental support systems, the cognitive scaffolding children are exposed to. Through interaction with a tutor, for example a parent or a teacher, a child will learn through mirroring their behaviors and verbal cues. The child then internalizes the information in a bid to quench their curiosity to understand, which they can later apply to life. The 2 main principles of Vygotsky's work are that of the more knowledgeable other, or MKO, and the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD. The MKO refers to someone who has a better understanding or ability level than the learner, in regard to a certain task, process, or concept. The key to MKOs is that they must have more knowledge about the topic being learned than the learner does. The MKO can take the form of parents, teachers, siblings, peers, and in more recent years, information and communications technology, or ICT. Vygotsky situates these learning experiences provided by the MKO in what he terms the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD. The ZPD addresses the difference between what a child can come to learn by themselves and that which must be taught. It is in these areas where the MKO is important, assisting the child so they may later become independent in the task. An example of this at work is the experiment in which two groups of children were asked individually to furnish a doll's house. One group was allowed to partake in a similar activity with their mother earlier that day, and the other was not. The outcome of the experiment showed that those who had been previously engaged with the activity with their mothers had far more of an understanding of the functionality of the furniture and its practical placement, in contrast to the children who had not been previously tutored on the subject. Are constructivist approaches too abstract, obscure, and unconnected to day-to-day reality? One of the main criticisms of constructive learning theory is that it is descriptive, not prescriptive. It is not an instructional approach, it is a theory of how learners come to know. Most constructivists support the need to foster interactions between the students' existing knowledge and new experiences. Incorporating constructivist learning theory in the classroom is possible by designing interactive digital materials. Cognitive constructive theory of multimedia focuses on constructing knowledge through prior visual and verbal experiences relating to students' prior knowledge. Learning outcomes for teachers should stimulate a perspective and an understanding rather than a prescribed outcome. An interesting use of this blended learning can be seen in the 2010 study by the researchers John Anderson and Hedley Bull. Anderson and Bull conducted a study on the effects of using teacher-made interactive materials on students' perceptions of learning with multimedia presentations and how multimedia promoted learning. Participants were 38 first-grade students and 2 certified teachers. Methodology researchers designed interactive digital materials on Black History Month teaching unit. Classroom teachers were trained on how to implement the multimedia lessons, and the findings were as follows. Students were more engaged in learning. It addressed different learning styles. It promoted the use of prior knowledge aligned with visual and verbal knowledge. It promoted higher level thinking skills. It promoted literacy skills, and it motivated students to learn. However, for all its success, there are problems with constructivist learning theory in practice. The biggest disadvantage is its emphasis on structure. Some students require highly structured environments in order to be able to excel, and this is not easily provided and often requires substantial resources, personnel, and technology skills. In its emphasis on context and highly particularized situations, constructivism calls for the teacher to discard standardized curriculum in favor of a more personalized course of study, based on what the student already knows. It also removes grading in the traditional way, and instead places more value on students evaluating their own progress, which may lead to students falling behind. Students can become confused and frustrated because they may not have the ability to form relationships and abstractions between the knowledge they already have and the knowledge they are learning for themselves. In conclusion, despite decades of successful implementations of constructivist learning theory, there are risks in relying solely on constructivist principles in the classroom and undervaluing the more recent educational research in fields such as behavioral theory of learning and the bioecological model of learning. In developing teaching schemes, teachers should aim to incorporate a multitude of learning theories.